stick figure. Rain fell in thick, hammering sheets, turning the road into mud as Caleb sat on his creaking porch, gripping the shotgun with white-knuckled hands. The cabin sat in eerie silence, and even Bear, his faithful shepherd mix, had grown uncharacteristically still. Hackles raised, his ears tilted towards the forest. The scratching had started days ago. At first, Caleb thought it was a raccoon, or maybe a bear scraping along the cabin's exterior. But the noises grew, spreading through the walls, tapping on the windows and scratching at the roof. Every night, he lay awake, breath held, pulse pounding. Whatever was out there seemed to be waiting for him, taunting him. Tonight he couldn't ignore it any longer. He peered into the dark, scanning the edges of the woods. The moon hung low, casting an eerie shadow that twisted across the ground. That was when he saw it. A figure barely visible in the tree line. It was tall and thin, with elongated limbs that bent at all the wrong angles, seemed to fold up upon itself. Eyes that gleamed with a sickly, bone-white glow. The creature stood watching him. Caleb's breath hitched, a primal fear gripping in his chest. He'd never seen anything like it, but something about the shape, the posture, stirred something from deep inside him. Something he tried to forget. His father had known these woods. Each trail and stone, every scent on the breeze. Caleb could still remember trailing after him as a boy, watching his father, Hank, would pause, listening to the calls of the bird, reading tracks that only he could see. Hank had been a legend in their small town, known for his incredible tracking skills. A man as steady as the trees around him. But something had changed one night when Caleb was just 11. His father had gone out alone, hunting a deer that had wandered too close to the property, a treasure he just could not let go. He'd been gone for days, and Caleb's mother had nearly given up hope when he finally stumbled home, clothes torn, eyes wild, flesh covered in marks that looked less like animal bites and more like something a nightmare would leave. Hank refused to speak of it, but he was never the same. He wouldn't step foot into the forest again, even during the day, and sometimes in the dark of night. Caleb could hear him muttering strange things about the shadows in the trees. Caleb tried to shake off the memory as he stood on the porch, shotgun trained on the figure in the trees, but his father's last words crept back to him. Words he'd whispered just days before he died. His hands frail and trembling. "They're not natural," he said, his voice hoarse and rasp. "The woods. They'll take you if you are not careful." Now, as he stared into the woods, Caleb couldn't dismiss the old man's words as the ravings of a frightened mind. Whatever was out there wasn't a bear or a wolf or a raccoon or a coyote. It was something that shouldn't exist. And it was waiting for him. The creature tilted its head in a mockery of curiosity and took a slithering step forward. It didn't walk. It glided, almost as if it were moving through something else entirely, like it wasn't bound by the rules of this world. Its voice seeped into his mind, skipping past his ears, pressing directly against his thoughts.
"You thought I'd forgotten?"
It was Caleb's old voice, coated in something ancient and vile. It was the same voice he had when he was 11.
"I remember you, little boy. I remember the scent of your father's fear as he crumbled in my sight.
The words sent a spike of ice through Caleb's veins. His father had spoken of shadows, but Caleb hadn't believed him till now. And here he was, staring at the very thing that had left his father broken, waiting in the dark for his family to return.
Step away! Stay away!
Caleb shouted as he raised the shotgun with trembling fingers. He pulled the trigger. The blast echoing through the forest, the creature seemed to blur, its form shifting as if it was made of shadows scattering into the night. But then it reassembled, whole and grinning wider than before. It whispered again, slithering through his mind with a chilling ease.
You can't keep me out.
Bear let out a low growl, a guttural, pressing against Caleb's leg, but his body began to shudder, and a high whine escaped his throat. The cabin door behind Caleb creaked, opening with a slow, sinister groan. Though no one had touched it, Caleb turned, heart hammering, and froze. Inside, shadows began to pool, stretching and wrapping, forming something that almost looked like his reflection, only wrong. His twisted silhouette stared back at him from within, his eyes empty, glowing like embers, a warped grin spreading across his face, stretching it to unhuman-like characteristics. A cold wave of realization swept over him, his mind recoiling at the horror before him. The thing outside the cabin, the one that had haunted his father, was not outside at all, clawing its way into his mind, twisting his own reflection to a grotesque puppet. The figure inside took a step forward, reaching out with a shadowy finger that stretched and warped, wrapping around Caleb's throat with a grip colder than death. He tried to turn, to run, but his feet felt heavy as they became part of the ground beneath him, the shotgun being released from his hand, giving a loud clutter as it hit the creaking floor. With one final, sickening pull, the shadow dragged him forward into the darkness of the cabin, the door slamming shut behind him with a final echoing thud. In the silence that followed, Bear's whimper was the only sound, a cry that echoed through the empty woods, unanswered. Hey everybody, thank you for stopping by and listening. If you want to hear more creepy stories like this, or even just stories of intrigue, sometimes fun stuff, you can follow my other channel called Fact and Fiction Chronicles. I originally started as kind of a faceless channel. I'm planning on adding voices and to get more ambitious with it very, very soon. So go ahead and swing by and, support the channel in all the other ways. And as always, I would like to thank my patrons, because you guys are always super awesome for joining me and coming along with this journey. We got some cool things coming along soon. And for everybody else who's liking, commenting, subscribing, and all that really cool jazz, I just wanted to say thank you as well, because your support also goes a super long way. So I will see you guys in the next video.